Heyday, Heyday.
Hey-o, how you guys doing, you little pillow pals? How's your day? How's your life? How's your mom? Hope everyone's doing well in that trifecta. Welcome back to another episode of Heyday Playday with my good buddy Medi.
Yay, Medi.
Where we're talking about all the wonderful things that we did in our childhood that made us the delinquents that we are today. Make sure that you take this all with a grain of salt. I'm sure that we're seeing a lot of things through rose-tinted glasses, and we're probably going to get a few things wrong every now and again. Please don't hate us for this. It's not our fault. Just like it's not Medi's fault for finally taking the controller away from me and playing this game all by himself. Because I'm not going to do any good for this. But now I'm realizing, no, it's not just me. He may have made the more progress, but it's also...
These are the harder levels.
He's got the harder levels going on, but he's just as shit as me in those levels, which is great.
Disagree.
It makes me feel better about myself, and I'm glad about that. I'm glad that I'm not the only one messing up over here. But with that, we ended off talking about our video game upbringings with our home consoles, but I definitely wanted to get into a little bit more of the arcade. We weren't really a part of the overall arcade generation, but we were definitely enough of it where we had like we weren't in the golden years of or not the golden years. What am I trying to say?
The heyday.
We weren't in the heyday. No, I don't know how to say that. I don't really want to say that either. I would just say like we weren't at the peak of what arcade lifestyle was, but we definitely, because I feel like that was more of like the late 80s where we weren't actually going to those, but the arcade industry hadn't like almost died at that point. You could still go there, drop a bunch of quarters, and you didn't have to do the little credit cards that they give you now. You could actually like...
Oh, I hate those cards so much.
I hate them too, but it's like you could actually sink actual coins into these things.
The days before tokens even?
Yeah, even before tokens, it's like you were putting your own hard-earned currency because of the lawns and lemonade stands that you had worked so hard to make that money. But speaking of hard-earned money, I didn't really use my own hard-earned money because my parents didn't give me an allowance. Like, that was just something that it was not a matter of, it's like, well, if you want money, do chores and we'll give you an allowance. I didn't have that. It was all controlled by my parents, right? So the only way that I could do it, and I feel bad for this, kinda, not really, but I had to sometimes, just like take a little bit of money, like embezzle a little bit of money from like, hey mom, I need $40 for covers for
$40. How much were you playing in the arcade?
Okay,
man?
now like so here was the thing though. It's like, so there was a matter of I always had a situation where when we were at arcade places, because my parents didn't frequent like arcade plazas or anything like that, we usually got them when we went on vacation, like when it was at an event area to go ahead and play these things. Like either it was a local carnival thing, or it was like sometimes, because we lived out in the Northwest, like we would go on like skiing trips sometimes.
Ooh, fancy.
But they would get like an actual like nice lodge out there, and we would hang out there. So there was one place in particular out past I want to say it was like on the edge of New York, that they had a bunch of ski lodge areas, and we rented one out for like a week while we were on Christmas vacation. So the most memorable moment that I had ever had, and one of those where it was also the biggest score. Now, when I say like $40, I'm not saying I spent $40 on things. I just knew how to like, I kind of knew how to play my parents to the thing. It's like they're not checking and verifying the stories that I said.
Kid.
I was a little bit of a bad kid, and you know what? Like, that's fine. I admit it. I wasn't the golden child, but at the same time, it's like I was, the hustler kid in the old '90s show Recess, like the one with the ball, the baseball cap, the one that really like was the ringleader to the entire, the main character of the show. Can't remember his name. Put him in the description down below and tell me how much of an idiot I am for not remembering his name. But I was that kid where I was the hustler of the thing, where it's like I would take that and then I would try to make money on top of it. So like it would be a matter of, it's like, okay, well, to get food at the like if I wanted to get like some food at the cafeteria lodge area, or like I wanted hot cocoa, I would say things like, it's like, oh well, the hot cocos over there are $7. And so they would give me $7 because they just want to shut me up, and they're not going to go over there. They want me to go do all this stuff for myself. This was also well before, like, a lot of 90s parents were really like, hey, keep your kid on a leash at almost all points.
Literally on a leash these days.
Literally on a leash. They weren't helicopter parents. They were like, if he gets abducted, we can have another one.
Don't you have siblings? They already had another one.
Yeah, like it's like, remember, there were 4 of you. Don't become the second one, or don't become the 5th. So it was a matter of like, I just remember while we were at the ski lodge, there was a point where I had like done that enough times where I had about $20 saved up from like those little like,
that's not saving up, by the way, that's stealing.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I gave them a price. It's not my fault if I had estimated for inflation of the next 7 years.
Pillow, I gotta say, this level is really starting to grind my gears here.
I'm sorry.
Water levels, man.
Water levels are
water
never,
levels.
Nobody's ever liked a water level.
Now, I will say that the soundtrack for this game is amazing, and I do really enjoy the water level soundtrack on this. But this is really trying.
Okay, I'm trying to talk about how much of a bastard I was.
Well, I just had to stop myself from yelling at the top of my lungs, so I thought
you can yell. Like, no one's gonna stop you from yelling.
I don't want to peak the audio.
You're gonna peak my audio. Do you need some stroking of encouragement?
No, for the love of God, I hate this. I hate this gag. Would you stop doing it?
Come here, real quick.
No, stop
just
it.
Come here.
Stop.
Come here.
Just don't touch me. That's like. Oh, whoa! What was that?
That was skadoosh.
Oh God, that's worse.
That was my Mortal Kombat finishing move. I call it the sploosh.
That right there is probably as close to as I can relate to those people who say they hate the word moist. That's about as close as I can get. But that is just not all right. Sorry to derail you.
Anyways, so like what I was talking about though is like when I would get when I would embezzle the money.
Let's call it what it is: stealing.
It's embezzling.
Embezzling is the white collar stealing.
I'm gonna double word this. It was definitely my embezzlement stages of life, where I was like, like if I can get a couple of extra bucks to go do something for myself, why not? Because again, I would do chores. Like it wasn't like we didn't do chores. I just wasn't getting any kind of earning out of it. Like, so I still
electricity, water, and a roof over your head.
All right, you know what? I was also the kid that like at age 10, I was like, hey, I could have this job. Like, I would look at the I would absolutely look at the classifieds and be like, Dad, if I had this job, I would be making $4 an hour, and in like 10 years, I would have like $1,200. Can you imagine what kind of help that would be to the house? Like, and in my mind, I'm like, that's just enough to get the Sega Dreamcast 10 years later. Like, I wasn't a very smart kid with it, but I was definitely crafty enough to get away with some stuff. Although, like, I feel guilty about it. I definitely do. But we weren't exactly hurting for money either.
So when you'd steal this money,
I would take the money and then I would go wall my parents, because skiing is exhausting.
It is.
But not for a kid of my age of 11, 12.
Uh-huh.
So what I would do is I would take that money while my parents were taking a nap during the day, and they didn't know this either. I would sneak out of the lodge area, like the hotel room. And like I would go to the arcade at that place. And I remember vividly just sitting there playing games like what was it? It was Aerosmith, Revolution.
Oh, Revolution.
I would play God, what other games? I would play the original Simpsons game.
The Simpsons arcade game was so
I
good.
played Turtles in Time.
Oh,
like
classic.
these were games, but the thing is, it's like there were other kids there, and that's really where I kind of socialized the most. Is like because it was one of those I realized kind of I may have overestimated how heavy a bag of $20 worth of quarters was, because I had taken the $20 that I had, which is obviously
Just
paper,
put it
and I
straight
put them
into it?
all into the my eyes were definitely bigger than my pockets. So what I had to do is I was loaded with quarters in my my cargo pants, just filled to the brim, and kids saw me. And
They
I
also
felt
probably heard you coming from a mile away.
Yeah, they probably did. I should have thought about that. Yeah, they probably heard me the entire time. That's just me chinking down the shink, 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 just clink, clank in my pockets. So I just remember I got into these places. There you go.
Finally.
There you go.
My gosh, I'm saving right now.
Yeah, go save. I would come into that place and I felt like the biggest VIP, because I would get in there and I would be like, yeah, kid, why don't you go play that game? Here's a couple quarters for you. I want to play more Turtles in Time. I want to play the Avengers game.
Were you walking around with a monocle at this time too?
No, it was more. I felt more like a gangster than anything else, because I didn't get it legitimately. Obviously, I was more mafioso than anything else. So I'm just like, yeah, you know what, kid? Why don't you go play that game? I'll give you some quarters for it.
Hey, kid, why don't you go fluff
And
yourself?
it's like, why don't you go fluff yourself, kid? Why don't you go get me? I remember, I didn't really do this, but I wanted to give kids things where it's like,
something pretty.
hey, go get. I was also the kid where growing up at that age, we also had the only entertainment in our hometown was a skate rink that we all went to, which also had arcades. But when I was doing those little embezzlements, it was a matter of I would be able to, instead of buying, because they had a token system there or a ticket system there where you would get enough tickets from some of the arcade games and you could go buy them, or buy Chuck E. Cheese style prizes at this.
I loved Chuck E.
skate
Cheese,
rink.
man.
But because we knew the 18-year-old that worked there, I was like, so how much is it just to buy it right now? So I would get tech decks.
Baller move. Right there, by the way.
And he would pocket the change, because obviously these things are all of these things are for tickets. So they're thinking it's hey, you get enough tickets, you get that. But he would take the money that I had, and he would just so and honestly, don't get me wrong, it was an absolute steal to get these things, because he also didn't understand the pricing of it. It was a matter of so a tech deck, one of those, if you don't know what a tech deck, it was basically finger skateboards. Where you would just pretend you were so cool for being able to do a kickflip with two fingers. I mean, back then, it was definitely very cool as a little kid. Nowadays, I see that that's where a lot of my practice for my sexual escapades came from. I mean, these two fingers are strong, sir. They know how to get things done.
Dude, if you try to kickflip inside of your partner, I don't think that's gonna go over well. All right.
I'm gonna goofy slide into this.
Oh, goofy slide. That's not even a move.
I'm gonna hit the rail.
Oh, no.
the rail of the labia. Just,
all right. There went our monetization right there. For
oh,
us.
well, I'll take it. You know what? To say that, I'm fine with it. Like, I think...
Oh, my goodness. Pillow. You know, what happened? What happened? You used to be such a good little young lad.
When? In my embezzlement stages?
Well, you know, how about we continue with the embezzlement story on the next episode?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Anyways, guys, thank you for enjoying this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure that you give it a like, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. Make sure that you check out the links in the description down below to check out all our stuff like our Patreon page where you can help support us.
So that he doesn't have to embezzle anymore.
So I don't have to... never mind. So I don't have to exploit my...
Your tech deck skills?
My tech deck skills for profit. I don't have to live on the street where it's like, I'll give you an ollie for $1.
Oh my gosh. Can we end this train of thought already?
As always, everyone, big hugs till you fart. Until next time, you keep fluffing your pillows. I will see you in the next stream. Tiddly toodaloo toodaloo to bye. Or the video. Tiddly toodaloo toodaloo to bye. Adios, amigos. Ciao.
Bye-bye.